You're watching me,
Cool.
MacDaddyMatty.
Big Man Tyrone.
Yes.
Cool.
And Mattyd.
And this is my frank and unfiltered review of 3 short, kinetic visual novels.
Ripples. Red War. And One Last Salty Kiss.
A kinetic novel is a visual novel in which the player does not affect the story, meaning you don't get any choices. The story just goes, and you're along for the ride. Your only influence on the story is the pacing, how quickly the story progresses. I hate this idea, and here's why. As I said in a previous video, I personally find the medium of the visual novel to be much more enjoyable than either a book or a movie. Something about the hybrid of both, where I can proceed at my own pace unlike a film, get limited visual cues of the sprites and the backgrounds, unlike a book, and have some limited control of the story's outcome, unlike a book or a film, seems to really enrapture my imagination in a way that books and film can't. So by taking that key element, the choice, away from me, it really impacts my immersion and personal investment into the story. See, a big part of the experience for me is that choice. I need those moments where I'm so deeply immersed in the story that a decision point makes it all grind to a halt. Where I can agonize over a decision and fret over the potential consequences, and then finally end up, unintentionally, making the worst choice possible. Because I'm damaged and slightly deranged. So knowing that I have an aversion to kinetic visual novels, and knowing that I've never played one, hey, I read a book once, alright? My video production team goaded me into playing some. So I did. And here we are. Also something different than I usually do, I'm not going to spoil the crap out of these 3 games.
There are no spoilers.
You'll need to go play them if you want to get the full stories, and you should play them. They're very short, very good, and I'm reviewing them, so you should play them. So here we go.
3 is the magic number.
Ripples.
I found Ripples by accident one day. I knew nothing about it other than the page's description, which isn't much. The single screenshot and the fact that it's about a 10-minute read really made me curious to check out this story brought to us by SakeVisual, and I'm really glad I did. Ripples is a beautiful game, elegant in its simplicity. The sprites, art, and setting are absolutely gorgeous. And the music, evocative, reaching right inside to pull at the heartstrings. This game is essentially a platitude. A wonderful philosophical metaphor and well-crafted statement. Extremely moe, with an adorably incessant female character, and an ending that has your imagination immediately running away with the story after it finishes. And Saki, you're doing something really right when you can get me to choke up with joy in 10 minutes of reading. Of course, maybe that says more about me. Maybe I should get back on my meds.
Yes.
It also has voice acting, which I disabled on my first playthrough, simply because for me it takes away from the personal immersion. I like to read these at my speed. I like to hear the voices of the characters in my head. I reactivated the voice acting on a subsequent playthrough and they did a really good job with it. Not trite or Disney-ish like a lot of visual novel voice acting seems to be.
Have I hurt you?
Don't be silly. Acting!
Brilliant!
Thank you!
Thank you!
It's still not my personal cup of tea, but it's very well incorporated. I really can't finger my one issue with Ripples without being kinda spoilery, but I'll hint at it with this.
My cat's breath smells like cat food.
Which is such a minor point that you can just discard it entirely. So the bottom line with Ripples, it's just a great example of the visual novel medium, and probably is going to be the one that I recommend to people who have never played a visual novel before, to go play. It's sweet, it's short, too short for a choice, as I think that would have just felt contrived, and maybe taken away from the simple yet profound message. And it has a nice heavy punch of feels if you're open to it, but it's still quite gratifying even if you're not.
Red War.
Red War was made by Good Tales, and full disclosure, my buddy Cole. Even fuller disclosure, I made the backgrounds for this beauty. And they are outstanding. Just ask me, I'll tell you all about them. But during its development, I made sure I never saw the script. So I went into Red War very spoiler-free. The only thing I really knew about the story is it's kind of like the film The Purge. And I've never seen The Purge. I know the basic plot, but gore's not really something I'm into unless it's the kind of gore you find in like a John Carpenter The Thing type of film. I'm more psychological horror, psychological thriller. Things like Alien, Ark, 1408, or The Butterfly Effect. I should also note that of the 12 games and visual novels that I've been involved with in developing in some manner, have I mentioned I make backgrounds? Red War is the only one to make it to the finish line and get released to the public at the time of this video. The rest are still in development, and a couple even died on the vine. So Red War has a special place in my heart, even though I've never played it before today. Now, making it to the finish line could be because Red War was expressly made for NaNoRenO, which is a developer challenge to make an entire visual novel from start to finish in 1 month. You heard that right. Everything. Writing, programming, art, backgrounds, beta testing, backgrounds, revising, backgrounds, all of it was done in 1 month, which alone is impressive, and more so for all that's in Red War. The premise of the story is that it's the year 2029 and humanity lives alongside a race of violent alien creatures known as the Red. The two species mostly live together in peace, but for 12 hours, once a year, 5 randomly selected cities on the planet are turned into a war zone between the Red and humans, in an event known as the Red War. Now, letting aliens trash and murder 5 human cities for the equivalent of a double shift at Taco Bell every year and calling it peace actually sounds like the kind of jackassery that only human governments could come up with. God, I hate humans. But the question that immediately came to my mind was, who gets to pick the cities? Can I pick the cities? Because this would be easy. Seattle, Washington. Because Starbucks burnt coffee and $12 lattes. I'll see you in your made-up sheeple language in hell, Starbucks.
Venti is large.
No, Venti is 20.
Danny.
Yeah. Large is large. In fact, tall is large, and grande is Spanish for large. Venti's the only one that doesn't mean large. It's also the only one that's Italian. Congratulations, you're stupid in 3 languages.
What? I've got to pick 4 more cities? Secaucus, New Jersey. Because nothing on the planet smells like Secaucus, New Jersey. Baltimore, Maryland. Because let's face it, if the world was going to get an enema, that's where it would go. Boston, Massachusetts. Because 3 words. Red Sox fans. And since I can't pick Seattle twice, Detroit, Michigan, because nobody could tell the difference afterwards. Seriously, there are cities in Syria that are in better shape than Detroit.
Go Bears!
I was pretty excited to see Red War is more on the spectrum of psychological horror and not gore. It has some very nice slice-of-life moments that help you connect to the story in its alternate Earth universe. I warmed up to it and cared about the characters from the genuine honesty in the writing. What really stood out to me, besides the masterful backgrounds, they're just so good, was the music choices, which gave the game a really epic cinematic feel. Really well chosen. Now, there were a couple of moments that were hard to swallow, as the emotional bridge connecting a couple of the events seemed to be missing, and felt a bit forced for the sake of the story, requiring a healthy dose of suspension of disbelief to get through. And I think all of that is due to the writing, programming, and art being started and completed in 1 month, with one guy doing the majority of the heavy lifting. And Red War is quite ambitious for a game made as a crunch time game. And honestly, 1 more week, just refining the script, I think would have closed those holes. But as there are some stellar backgrounds, it's pretty easy to give it a pass there. Okay, all seriousness, I'm very glad to have played Red War. It's really good. You absolutely should too. I finished it in about 90 minutes, and I'm really proud to be a part of the team that made this. Have I mentioned how good the backgrounds are?
And one last salty kiss.
Besides having the greatest title of anything ever, One Last Salty Kiss was also made for NaNoRenO. Brought to us by Andrea Montagna, or also known as Fullmontis, this is a great story about a guy trying to forget and a girl trying to remember. Illustrated with its stylized graphics, the slice-of-life story quickly becomes surreal, and at the same time the audience finds themselves drawn deeper and deeper into its captivating mystery, which is anchored in an identifiably natural environment of emotion, where the reader can easily have a solid connection to any of the characters. This story is definitely a feels trip, and it hit me hard for the under 2 hours I spent with it. It's raw. I was not even halfway through it, and it was already pretty heavy on my heart. I'm not crying. My eyes are leaking anger juice at you, Baka. It's not like I like this visual novel or anything. And often the music for long stretches is the simple sound of the rolling ocean breaking on the beach, which I could spend an entire video discussing the metaphor of that. But I won't. And you're welcome. There are parts of this game that reminded me of Lucy, the eternity she wished for, both in setting and traces of concept, and I mean that as a huge compliment to Fullmontis, as Lucy is easily one of my favorite visual novels. I was a bit amused that the character Michelle has a little bit of main character syndrome in so much as he's kinda nonchalant about the whole supernatural aspect of the story. But that didn't stop One Last Salty Kiss from grabbing me tight and holding on to me emotionally. Yeah, One Last Salty Kiss had me choking back tears, when they flat out weren't running down my big fat stupid face. Just really wonderfully deep and emotional. A connection that I was so easily immersed into and quickly became a part of. This is the only one of the 3 stories in this video that has any lewd in it, and to my taste it was perfect for the story. Discerningly classy and suggestive, and as much as I like some hot bumpin' uglies action, I'm not a big fan of explicit art in the story that grips you so ardently in a pure emotional connection. Often less is more, as the greatest sex organ we have is our mind, our imagination. And these lowercase h scenes are what they needed to be for this story. A punctuation, a natural expression to the point of the story, and thankfully not a cheap thrill. As a bonus, One Last Salty Kiss is available in several languages, and make sure you check out the extras and concept art after you finish playing. Very nice touch. One thing I always look for as a player in visual novels is the navigation. Does pressing the S key take a screenshot? Can I mouse wheel up and go back? Does pressing the middle mouse button hide the text box revealing the graphics? and awesome backgrounds. And for the most part, all three of these hit those marks. If you're a developer of video games, keep in mind what your audience wants, and good navigation makes the immersion that much easier to hold on to. So there you go, 3 kinetic visual novels that you can and should play in one single afternoon. Ripples that I found by accident, Red War that I was a part of, and one last salty kiss that was recommended to me. And keep the recommendations coming. I'm Matty D. Hey, thanks for all the great conversations and comments you guys post. For the couple of you that have been trolling my channel with your nasty comments, YouTube's been deleting them and I'm sorry about that. It could have been one of my moderators, but I told them to knock that off. So please keep it up. I'll add you as a trusted poster if needed, if your snark keeps getting removed. And I want to go on the record saying that I welcome the flame and the insults.
1,
It's good for keeping me humble.
2,
It's fun to giggle at your little hate on. Watch my Reddit AMA video to see what I mean.
3,
I think it would make a great end of year video. Take all that trolling, put it together, maybe get Big Man Tyrone to voice it.
yes.
And I'm talking especially to you, Kaiser Soze. But come on, you gotta up your game a little, man. I'm wearing a lavender t-shirt that says Happy Waifu, Happy Lifeu, and Crocs. Clearly, if you're gonna come at me, bro, you probably want to pack more than what you've been sending my way. I call myself a big pussy in every one of these videos. So you posting that in the comments, we're a little embarrassed for you.
Yes.
But you're adorable, and apparently desperately in need of the attention, so feel free to keep it up. For everyone else that isn't a tsundere, thank you for watching.
Don't forget to like and subscribe.
Have I mentioned I make backgrounds? Have I mentioned I make backgrounds? Have I mentioned I make backgrounds?